am back and I'm hoping to be posting more frequently. The summer holidays had just ended, so I thought that'd be a good place to start. So my children did the summer reading challenge, and one of the days when I was at the library with my son, I realised I could get a book for myself. It's been a long time since I've been allowed to look at the books in the library because I'm usually so busy chasing after my children, but my son's a little bit older and this was a rare occasion. I was only with him. So I said to him, do you mind if Mummy just looks at some books? He said, yeah. So I didn't have to travel far because I like UA book. And then I saw this huge display and it was like all these different books, and they had like bookmarks or like stickers on them with what people had written on to say, I recommend this book. And I saw this book on the shelf with a bookmark. The bookmark looks like this. It says, my best summer read so far is. It was sticking at the top of the book. And the book I spied was this one, Blood Moon. Now, as a lover of shifter stories, I was attracted to it because I thought, ooh, I wonder if this is going to be like vampires, werewolves, that kind of thing. So I picked it up to have a look at it. And when I read the back, it's the first things you read on the back of the cover is period, sex and online shaming. So I was like, this isn't quite what I thought I was picking up. But I read a bit more of it and I thought, as I do write UA fantasy, and I write contemporary fantasy, so it's set in the real world, I do have things happen in my stories like bullying. So I thought, you know what, it's probably a good idea that I pick this up and have a look at it. And it's come highly recommended by somebody else in the library. I don't know who the person is who picked it and said this is the best summer read. And I thought, let's give it a go. The rest of the blurb says, during Frankie's first sexual experience with lovely Benjamin, she gets her period. It's only blood, they agree. No shame. Then a graphic meme goes viral, turning their fun, intimate afternoon into something mortifying and damaging. And Frankie begins to wonder, is she disgusting? As the online shaming takes on a horrific life of its own, her universe first implodes. But can laughter, bravery, and the fiercest of friendships help Frankie find her way out of the darkness? So I checked it out, brought it home, and I literally blasted through the book. It's written like no book I've ever read before. So it has got a plot to it, but it feels almost like you're delving in and reading someone's text messages, because a lot of it is like backwards and forwards text messaging. There's not very much, I think it's called prose, like, you know, the descriptions of like where we are and stuff like that. Everything's very brief and punchy, which makes it a really fast read. And I'll just quickly flick open a page to show you. So it's like that. So there's not many words on each page, and each side of the page is like the conversations of the different people that are texting backwards and forwards. Or it could be like she might be having a conversation with someone and the text on the other side is her thoughts, so like the things that she's actually saying and then her inner dialogue. It is written brilliantly. I've never read a book like it and I really, really enjoyed it. And it's split into 3 parts. It's like part 1, part 2 and part 3 if I remember rightly. And I literally read a part a day. So it was almost like it's a 3-chapter book. But I just like flew through it. It was so good. I loved the ending. So as you can guess, there is a period in it, which causes a bit of a scandal. So the bullying starts off as a meme. It progresses to there being a website started. The harassment online goes out of control. Everybody's talking about it. There's no way to escape it. She has to go to school and everybody is talking about it. So it is really intense. So it's very like cyberbullying. I think even though it's aimed at teens, I think a lot of parents would get a lot out of it to read it, to like understand what their kids do go through, like all the drama and the stresses to try and fit in and look cool and all that kind of stuff that we kind of forget as we grow up and being in that environment. And the way it's written, it just felt so much like it is a teenager. But there's a picture of the author in the back and she's not she does not look like she's been a teenager for a little while. So she has obviously done her research or knows some teens that were pretty open with her, because this book is incredible. All of the editors are incredible. It's really good. After outing the author for not being a teenager, which isn't a big deal, but I just felt like I ought to share a little bit about why she says she wrote this book. So in the back of the book, there's a little blurb about her, and she says, obviously this is her debut novel. It inspired by her experience of having endometriosis, which still takes an average of 8 years to diagnose, despite affecting 1 in 10 women, which is kind of shocking considering that like 10% of women will have endometriosis, and still it's very difficult to get diagnosed. So Lucy hopes to encourage conversations about menstruation and to break down the outdated taboo around periods. The novel brings together her research on shame and the way men and women are treated differently online with her love of verse. Lucy is a graduate from Bath writing for young people, and where she wrote Blood Moon. So she actually wrote the novel while studying at Bath doing her writing masters. The novel was shortlisted for the Bath Children's Novel Award. She is the author of more than 30 books for young children. She regularly speaks on the BBC about children's books and current affairs, and runs creative writing workshops in secondary schools. Sounds like she's one very busy lady. I might have to go look up her children's books, because I do love children's books and have young children of my own, so maybe I'll fall in love with more of Lucy Cuthew's work. I don't know if I'm saying her name right. Lucy lives in Cardiff and is currently writing her second verse novel about the effects of porn on young people. When she is not writing, she enjoys listening to science podcasts and sharing Frankie and Harriet's love of croissants. So then on the back page, it looks like there is even more quotes. Reading Lucy's book made me think about back when I went to YALC, which is the Young Adult Literacy Convention in London. So it was before the pandemic, so we're talking a little while back. And when I was there, I was quite keen to meet a literary agent called Chloe Seeger. And it was a really good event to see her, because I managed to pitch Ocean Heart to her, although at the time it was called, I was going by the name Jewel of the Sea. And she was interested enough that she asked me to send it to her, which was very, very exciting, because she has been my favourite literary agency for like forever. So anyway, but that's another story altogether. What I wanted to talk to you about was one of the panels she had, one of the author panels, she'd brought one of her new authors with him, who was called, let me just check what her name was, Laura Corrigan. So I wrote a blog post about my experience at YLC, which you can search for and find on my blog, which is how I managed to find out what was that name of that author that was there, the event. So I found her, and the book that she wrote was called Speak Up. And one of the interesting things about this talk was Chloe shared how she found Laura. So Laura is a non-fiction author. So I've always wondered, like, how do non-fiction authors pitch? But basically, they didn't. Chloe thought her story was interesting, so she reached out to her to see if she'd be interested in writing a book, and then she wrote a book. And what Laura's story is Laura decided that she wanted to do something about period poverty. So here's the blurb for the book that she wrote, called Speak Up. Use your voice to change the world. Don't just read about inspiring women, become one. Launching in the time for International Women's Day 2019, Speak Up is the must-have empowering book to inspire a whole new generation of rebel girls. Speaking up can be difficult, but did you know just how powerful your voice can be? Written by Laura Corrigan, who led the international campaign against tampon tax. Speak Up is a vital and timely book exploring what it means to stand up for what you believe in on both a public and personal level. Laura explores how to make sure your voice is heard, as well as what happens when your voice is challenged by others. She tackles tricky subjects like feminism, consent, online bullying, self-confidence in a meaningful but accessible and entertaining way. With a positive message about friendship, female empowering and standing up for who you are, this is the perfect gift for girls aged 12 plus. Inspiring, warm and honest, this conversational and big sisterly guide is the must-have girl power book for 2019. Speak Up is a wonderful and timely guide to activism for women and girls brought up in the age of the internet and social media. It is wholly accessible, fun and quirky, full of Laura Corrigan's own experiences with very successful tampon tax campaign. I highly recommend it and hope the book helps to galvanise the next generation. Helen Pankhurst, great-granddaughter of the suffragette leader Emmeline Pankhurst, author and women's rights activist. And there's more quotes from people saying how amazing this book is and the movement that Laura led. So it was a really interesting talk at YALC. So if you ever do go to the author panels and find out. And if you don't think that Lucy's book sounds like the sort of thing you would enjoy to get a better understanding of the impact of periods on young people and the online bullying, you've also got this more serious topic where Laura is written in another style, or get both if you're doing this for your daughters. So I thought I'd add that in here because it's not a book I've ever read. I've always meant to buy it because it did sound really fascinating at the event. But I thought I'd share it in here because it got me thinking about it and reminded me about it when I was reading Lucy's book. Earlier on in this, I mentioned that I am Ali Aldridge, author of a UA fantasy novel called Ocean Heart. Here is my book. And in Ocean Heart, I have lots of coming of age themes in it as well, and first love and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that does happen to my main character in the novel is she does start her period. So I'm going to read you a little bit from my book of that scene. So it's about, I think it's about chapter 4. It's on page 29. So here we go. Arriving home didn't give me the pleasure my pitiful mood had desired. I just wanted the ache in my belly to stop. I dumped the bags in the kitchen and unpacked the items. The task was robbing me of my final reserve of energy. What's that? Mum gasped. What's what? I turned to identify what she was pointing at. Following her finger down towards my leg, I saw a dark red line that ran down my inner thigh like paint. It was bright and vivid, and I felt faint just looking at it. I don't know, I mumbled weakly. Quick, Mum gasped. Go to the toilet, I'll fetch you some sanitary pads. The burning heat that had plagued me all day suddenly rushed to my face. I ran to the toilet and locked the door, sinking down onto the seat. I inspected the damage. Sure enough, my knickers were soaked. Just a teaspoon of blood. That's what my sexual education teacher had taught me, but this was more. Way more. I felt sick and wriggled my knickers off and over my ankles, trying my best not to touch them. Pulling a piece of tissue from the roll, I rubbed the stripe on my leg, but it was dried on. How long had it been there? Had anyone else seen it? The humiliation eventually got to me and a stray tear found its way down my cheek. I sat there helplessly on the toilet waiting for Mum to return with clean knickers and a sanitary pad. I hadn't pictured my first period being like this. I thought I'd have some warning and be more prepared for the first time since the move. I was glad that Jace wasn't here. So the story began with Jace being her next door neighbour and her best friend of forever, and their relationship gets complicated because she starts to develop a crush on him, but he's not that into her. So it's the sort of things that teenagers have to go through. I know me and my friends had all the kind of drama with boys and their bodies changing and everything, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted it to be a fantasy story for teenagers with shifters, because Moira is also is going to be discovering in the novel that she's a mermaid and she has to go through all the changes and accepting herself as not even human. But it was really fun to write, so I hope that you might be interested to go check it out, because you can actually borrow it from the library. It's in Suffolk County Libraries, just like Blood Moon. Thank you. So I had to quickly record this because after I edited, I realised I wanted to add this in, and tomorrow is the day to take my book back to the library. So I'll be saying goodbye to Blood Moon, but I definitely will be looking up Lucy again in future. And yeah, just really liked her writing style. It's something very different, fresh, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars straight away and wrote out my review. So I thought this was a good place to start. I'm going to put it back in the library with the yellow card saying this is the best summer read.